side. Corals reproduce two ways. They reproduce both sexually and asexually. You have a coral colony. Each one of those colonies has thousands of animals on it. They're all interconnected. But how do you get that other coral colony over there? So that would be sexual reproduction, where the corals will release sperm and eggs into the water column, and those things will all mix, fertilize, and grow into a little larva that's, that planktonic larval stage floating around in the ocean currents, and then eventually that settles. And what this looks like is basically the corals need to time their release of these cells very specifically. So the cauliflower coral, for example, it will be the day after the full moon in April, unless the full moon is too early in April, then it'll be the one in May, between 7 and 8 a.m. So it's very specific, and you can predict that. You can go sit in the water, and you can watch, waiting for these little guys to do that. But I've heard it's like worse than watching paint dry, because you're just sitting there, watching the clock, waiting, and then if something happens, you just get a little bit of sort of misty color coming out of it. But it is, very cool that they can synchronize. A simple animal like this can synchronize with the rest of the reef to make sure they have the highest rate of fertilization and then the best settlement after that. Going back a little bit, corals, they can be either hermaphroditic, meaning that each individual is both male and female and capable of producing both sperm and eggs, or they can be gonochoric, which means they are only male or only female. Then going back just a little bit more to the asexual side of it, so you've got all this stuff up in the water, the things fertilize and the larvae settle. But when they settle, they're just one individual polyp. And that polyp needs to divide into, or will divide into 2 polyps, and then into 4, and then into 8, and so on. And that will happen, and they'll start to secrete their skeleton. Eventually you'll have a large coral colony with tens of thousands of individual animals. One thing that's cool about that is each animal on one coral colony is genetically identical to all the other ones. So they will all suffer the same fate if they come into a certain disease or a certain water temperature or whatever. They act as one sort of coherent group. But that method, asexual reproduction, can also be used to produce another coral colony. For example, if you have a storm that smashes down and breaks a big colony in half, and that one side tumbles down the reef, just down the slope a little bit. If it lands somewhere that's still a suitable habitat and still exposed to sunlight and it doesn't succumb to any diseases or whatever, it can continue to grow. It'll actually reattach to the substrate and will become its own coral colony, even though it will be genetically identical to the other. So let's see, I don't know if I still have this slide here. Okay, so this is just a picture of the little, I don't know if this is a real picture or a drawing or whatever, but basically one little polyp settles and splits out. And then I think there was something else I wanted to say here too. Yeah, I don't have this slide here, but I was just going to say about the coral growth. So when they grow up, you'll see if you split the colony, you'll see there's kind of like a ladder inside the skeleton, and that's all the little cups that the corals have been producing as they grow higher and higher. But sometimes you'll see 2 rows growing up together and then they split, and there's a new one that comes up in the middle. And that's where a new polyp went in between the 2 and started producing its own cup. And so that's how you can get more on the surface as it gets older.